All right, so get this. We're diving into this project today, and it's basically like taking this centuries-old chapel
Mm.
and turning it into like a futuristic community hub. It's in a small Welsh town. Thing like digital skills workshops right alongside art studios,
Wow.
all kind of infused with this focus on well-being.
Okay.
Pretty wild, right?
Yeah, it's fascinating how they're taking these like seemingly totally different elements
Yeah,
and combining them, and they're calling it creating what they call a regenerative catalyst.
right.
Like they're not just renovating a building, right?
Hmm.
They're trying to actually spark a wider transformation in the community.
Yeah, okay, so let's back up a bit. We're talking about Caernarfon in North Wales,
Right.
which, a town steeped in history, but also facing some tough economic realities.
Mm.
So what's the context here? Paint me a picture.
Um, Imagine a place like steeped in history, tied to the slate industry,
Okay.
a place where the Welsh language is like deeply ingrained in the culture. But like many towns that were once kind of reliant on a single industry,
Mm,
Caernarfon has seen its share of hardship.
right.
The sources you shared really paint a picture of a community that's grappling with, economic decline, lack of opportunities, especially for young people.
Right, and that's where this Engedi 2.0 comes in.
Exactly.
They're taking this grand old chapel, Engedi Chapel to be exact, and they're envisioning it as this place where, like, technology meets creativity and then, like, personal well-being is given, like, equal weight.
Yeah.
And they're calling it, again, this regenerative catalyst. It's a pretty bold claim.
It is a bold claim.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks to their ambition, right? They're not just creating a space for people to, learn to code or paint.
Yeah.
They're trying to foster a mindset of resilience, of community empowerment, of using technology and creativity as like tools for positive change.
So it's about giving people the skills and the support they need to not just survive, but actually thrive, both individually, like you're saying, and as a community.
Right.
But how do these three pillars, technology, art, and well-being, how do they actually work together? Like, give me an example.
Okay, so imagine a young person in Caernarfon
Okay.
who, maybe feeling a bit stuck, unsure of what their future prospects might be.
Mhm.
And Engedi 2.0 wants to provide them with like multiple pathways.
Okay.
So maybe they discover a passion for coding in the hack space. Or maybe they find solace and self-expression through painting or music in the art studios.
Yeah.
And by integrating well-being practices, they're acknowledging that, personal growth goes hand in hand with your mental and emotional well-being.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about, yeah.
I'm starting to see how those pieces kind of fit together.
Yeah.
It's about creating this holistic environment, nurturing the whole person.
Exactly.
But let's talk about, maybe the elephant in the room here.
Mm-hmm.
How do they plan on making this financially viable?
Yeah.
Old buildings are notorious money pits, and even with the best intentions.
Right. You're right to focus on the financials because a project this ambitious needs a solid foundation.
Yeah.
And their plan is multi-layered, right? So they're combining these like more traditional revenue streams like memberships and event rentals with some, like, I think, pretty innovative ideas.
All right, break it down for me. What are we talking about?
So they're really leaning into this idea of hacker retreats and make tourdications.
Okay.
Essentially like marketing Caernarfon as a destination for like techies, creatives, entrepreneurs who are looking for an alternative to those bustling and expensive city hubs.
So swap the noise and distractions of the big city for the peace and quiet of rural Wales.
Right.
But with the added bonus of working on a project in a renovated chapel.
Exactly.
I mean, I can see the appeal.
Yeah.
But is it going to be enough to actually draw people in?
That's the gamble, right?
Yeah.
But they're not just relying on like the novelty factor.
Right.
Right. They're highlighting the affordability, the access to, like, a really well-equipped makerspace and the opportunity to connect with like-minded people, both locals and those coming in from outside.
So a potential win-win for everyone involved.
Yeah.
But to make those retreats a success, you need a solid marketing strategy. What's the plan there?
So they're banking on a mix of like traditional marketing, right? But then also some like, really strategic partnerships.
Okay.
And I think, they've got some big names, right?
Yeah.
Like, Mitch Altman, who's like a pioneer in the hackerspace movement. He's on their board of trustees.
Right.
Which lends like instant credibility.
Yeah, it's like instant street cred. People might not have heard of Caernarfon, but if they hear that this big tech heavyweight is involved, it's like, oh, okay.
It piques your interest.
But credibility aside, they still need people to show up.
Right.
They need people to buy into the vision.
Yeah.
How are they planning on engaging the local community in all of this?
So they're emphasizing grassroots involvement from the get-go. And they were actually transitioning from a company to a charitable organization, which will be governed by a board of trustees. But here's the key. They're planning to offer membership with voting rights, giving the community a direct say in the project's direction.
So it's not just like build it and they will come. It's like, let's build it together.
Exactly.
I like that.
And they're not stopping there, right? They're also exploring the use of digital democracy tools to further empower the community.
Digital democracy tools.
Yeah.
That sounds intriguing, but a little vague. Give me an example.
Okay, so think of it like an online platform where members can, propose ideas, vote on projects, provide feedback. All like transparently and in real time. It's a way to ensure that everyone has a voice, not just the people who can physically make it to meetings.
Right. So they're really baking that participatory element into the very structure of Engedi 2.0, from governance to everyday decision making. It's an interesting approach, especially when you consider the potential for apathy or skepticism in a community that's seen its fair share of hardship, right?
And that's a very real challenge.
Yeah.
They've acknowledged that.
Yeah.
They know that it'll take more than a shiny new building to inspire lasting change.
Right.
But I think this focus on community empowerment, combined with this tangible investment in their future, it could be a really powerful motivator.
Yeah, it's like they're saying, we see you, we hear you, and we're building this with you, not just for you.
Exactly.
But let's get real for a second. Even with the community support, this whole endeavor kind of hinges on securing the funding.
Right.
Right? What's the financial picture actually look like?
Well, they've outlined a multi-pronged approach, which is a smart move. They're not putting all their eggs in one basket.
Right, right.
On top of the hacker retreats, the makerspace memberships, the event revenue, they're also vying for grants from various organizations.
And are these just any grants, or are they strategic in who they're targeting?
Very strategic. Focusing on organizations that align with their core mission, right? So heritage funds, arts councils, even those dedicated to digital inclusion.
Smart move. Don't just cast a wide net, focus on the ones who are most likely to see the value in what you're doing. But even with, a mix of funding sources, running a place like this takes more than money. They're talking about workshops, events, a whole cafe. Who's going to manage all of it?
So they've laid out a management team structure that's designed to address those demands. And they're planning to have dedicated managers for each of their core areas. Technology, creative arts, and well-being.
So it's like they're building a mini Silicon Valley with a side of yoga and watercolors. Ambitious, to say the least.
Yeah.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's dive deeper into this whole regenerative catalyst idea. What does it actually mean in practice?
Yeah.
How will they measure their success?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
And it's one that we'll need to unpack carefully as we kind of delve further into this project. Because for Engedi 2.0 to truly live up to its name, it needs to be more than just, a collection of cool spaces and interesting programs. It needs to demonstrate a measurable impact on the community, on the local economy, and on the overall well-being of the people it serves.
It's about proving that this model, this blending of technology, art, and well-being within a framework of community empowerment can actually spark a lasting transformation. Now, we know this chapel has a rich history, even a connection to a former British Prime Minister.
Oh, that's right. It was where David Lloyd George, the only Welsh Prime Minister the UK has ever had, baptized his son.
Wow.
Speaks volumes about the role that this chapel played in the community, right?
Absolutely. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of their plans and potential challenges, let's take a step back in time
Okay.
and explore the historical significance of the Engedi Chapel itself. Because understanding its past might just hold the key to unlocking its future.
I love it.
So we're like stepping back in time now
Okay.
to kind of uncover the story of this building, this Engedi Chapel,
Right.
because it clearly wasn't just another church on the street corner. Yeah.
No, not at all. The sources you shared, they reveal a really fascinating history. This wasn't just a place of worship, right? It was a cultural hub. It was a gathering place for the whole community.
Right.
Sunday schools, like literary society meetings, even political rallies.
Wow.
It seems like this chapel was really like deeply entwined with the fabric of life in Caernarfon.
It's giving me like serious community center vibes,
Right.
but with like a site of historical grandeur.
Right.
And speaking of history, this chapel has a direct link to a British prime minister.
I know, right?
It's a pretty big deal.
It is.
Right.
It is. We're talking about David Lloyd George.
Right.
The only Welsh prime minister the UK has ever had.
Right.
And guess what? He baptized his son right there in Engedi Chapel.
Wow.
So it highlights how central these chapels were to the social and even political landscape of Wales.
You start to wonder, like, what conversations took place within those walls? What ideas were debated? What dreams were shared? It adds a whole other dimension to Engedi 2.0, don't you think? It's like they're not just renovating a building, it's like they're reviving a legacy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that connection to the past,
Yeah.
that sense of continuity, I think it could be like a really powerful motivator for the community. It's about honoring that spirit of what Engedi Chapel represented,
Right.
while at the same time, you know, giving it this new life, like for the 21st century.
I am getting chills just thinking about it, but let's bring it back to the present day a little bit. To those potential challenges we were talking about.
Right.
Because even with the best intentions and like a really solid plan on paper, you know, there are always bumps in the road.
Oh, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And to their credit,
Yeah.
Engedi 2.0 hasn't shied away from addressing those challenges at all.
Okay.
They've done a really thorough SWOT analysis,
Okay.
outlining their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Okay, so let's dive into that SWOT analysis a little bit. Hit me with the highlights.
Okay.
What are some of their biggest hurdles?
Well, funding is definitely a major one, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, they're relying on this mix of grants, memberships, revenue from the retreats, you know, other income streams. But let's be real. Securing sufficient funding, especially for a project of this scale, it's a constant battle.
Right, and even if those hacker retreats take off,
Yeah.
even if the makerspace is like, you know, buzzing with activity,
Right.
there's always that risk that like the funding dries up or those initial grants run out.
Yep.
Right? What's their plan for long-term financial sustainability?
So their strategy really hinges on a diversification.
Okay.
They're not putting all their eggs in one basket.
Right.
They're exploring these multiple revenue streams so that if one falters, the others can kind of pick up the slack.
Right.
And like I said, they're being really strategic about the grants that they're pursuing,
Right.
targeting organizations that are really aligned with their core values.
It's about building a safety net, making sure that they're not overly reliant on any one
Exactly.
single source of income.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But even with the money in place, you still need people, right?
Oh, 100%.
And not just like staff,
Yeah.
but like the sustained involvement of the community.
Right.
And that's no easy feat.
You've hit on another like major challenge that they've identified, and that's attracting and then retaining community involvement. Because it's one thing to get people excited about like a grand opening,
Right.
but maintaining that enthusiasm over time,
Yeah.
ensuring that Engedi 2.0 really becomes like woven into the fabric of the community,
Right.
that's the hard work.
That's where the real work is, yeah. Especially in a place like Caernarfon, which has faced its fair share of economic hardship. And so, I mean, people might be understandably skeptical, right?
Right.
Wondering if this is just another, like, well-intentioned project that ultimately falls short of its promises.
Right. That it's all just going to
Right, exactly.
fizzle out.
So how do you combat that cynicism?
By being transparent.
Yeah.
By actively involving the community in the decision-making, and by demonstrating tangible benefits.
Okay.
Right? Remember those digital democracy tools we were talking
Yeah.
about?
Right.
That's a key part of their strategy.
Right. So it's not just about showing up for events. It's about like having a say
Exactly.
in how Engedi 2.0 evolves, in what programs they offer, how they allocate resources.
It gives them ownership. Right.
Right. Exactly.
It's their place.
And by providing those opportunities for skill building,
Right.
for like personal growth, for creative expression, they're hoping to empower the community to take ownership of their own futures, right?
Exactly. It's about creating that sense of agency. Showing them that change is possible when people come together with a shared vision.
It's about shifting from a mindset of, like, what can be done for us to what can we achieve together.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Love it.
But let's not forget about the practical challenges here, too, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about renovating a historic building.
Right.
They're not dealing with a blank slate here.
Absolutely not. Working with a Grade 2 second listed building comes with its own set of hurdles.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Strict regulations, potential for unforeseen structural issues.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's always that risk of cost overruns and delays.
Yeah, one peek beneath the surface. It's like,
exactly.
Who knows? You could uncover a whole host of problems that need addressing.
Yep.
And I'm guessing those beautiful old beams come with a pretty hefty price tag.
Right. Totally.
When it comes to, like, restoration and all of that. So how are they mitigating those risks?
They're being very deliberate in their approach.
Okay.
So they're working with architects and contractors who specialize in historic renovation. And they're also, like, taking this phased approach to the project.
Okay, so starting with, like, securing and stabilizing the structure before diving into, like, the full-blown renovation.
Exactly. It's more financially prudent, and it allows them to, like, address any unforeseen issues early on without derailing the entire project.
Smart. Okay. But beyond those structural challenges, I mean, they've also identified, the potential for competition from other local organizations, which makes sense. I mean, Caernarfon isn't exactly a bustling metropolis, right? There are only so many resources to go around. So how do they plan on navigating that potential rivalry?
Their approach seems to be all about collaboration.
Okay.
Not competition.
Okay.
Right. So they're reaching out to these other organizations, they're exploring partnerships, and they're positioning Engedi 2.0 as, like, a resource hub, a place where existing initiatives can be kind of, like, amplified.
It's less about reinventing the wheel and more about making it roll smoother.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
I like that. It's a much more, like, sustainable approach.
Absolutely.
In the long run.
And it speaks to their understanding of, like, the local ecosystem, right? They're not coming in with an attitude of, we know best.
Right.
They're acknowledging the work that's already being done.
Right.
And they're trying to figure out, how can we contribute to these existing efforts?
It's that humility, I think, that willingness to listen and learn from the community that will ultimately determine their success.
Absolutely.
Right. But even if they navigate the funding challenges, the renovation hurdles, the potential for competition, there's still that, like, day-to-day operation of Engedi 2.0 to think about.
Right. Who's gonna manage it all?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So walk me through their organizational structure.
Okay.
What's the plan?
So they're planning to have a dedicated team of managers overseeing each of their core areas.
Okay.
So technology, creative arts, and well-being. They're also in the process of, like, establishing a board of trustees with a diverse range of expertise.
So building a team with both the passion for the project, but also the practical skills to make it work.
Right.
Yep. Which makes sense. But it's not just about having the right people in place, is it? Yeah. They'll also need to constantly evaluate their progress, measure their impact, and be willing to adapt based on, real-world feedback.
Oh, absolutely. They've acknowledged the importance of, like, ongoing monitoring and evaluation. So they're planning to, like, collect data on everything.
Okay.
From, like, program participation rates to community feedback, and use that information to make adjustments along the way.
Because even the best laid plans often need, like, tweaking once they're put into practice.
Totally. It's about being flexible, responsive, always open to learning from both, successes and setbacks. It's about embracing that iterative process, acknowledging that Engedi 2.0 isn't a destination, it's a journey.
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And it's one that will require constant course correction.
And a willingness to embrace the unknown.
Which brings us back to that term that we keep coming back to, regenerative catalysts.
Right. Because it's not just about breathing new life into this chapel. It's about sparking a wider transformation in the community, one that extends like beyond the walls of this building.
Precisely. And that transformation hinges on more than just like offering cool tech or art classes.
Right.
It's about fostering this mindset of empowerment, of creativity, of believing in the possibility of a brighter future.
It's about reigniting that spark of hope, that belief in the power of collective action to actually create lasting change.
Yeah.
Right.
And if Engedi 2.0 can achieve that, it could become a model for communities.
All over the world who are facing these similar challenges.
Oh, yeah.
It strikes me that what they're trying to do with Engedi 2.0, it's like weaving a tapestry, you know? Taking these threads of history, technology, art, well-being, and like intertwining them to create something new, something that honors the past, but also embraces the future.
It is a powerful metaphor.
Yeah.
And I think one that really resonates with the core of their mission.
Right.
Because true regeneration, it's not about restoring what was lost.
Right.
It's about creating something even more vibrant and resilient.
Right.
More relevant to the challenges that we're facing today.
And they're doing it in a way that really puts the community front and center, right?
Yeah.
Giving them not just a voice, but a vote in actually shaping the future of this whole project. I'm still really interested in this idea of Engedi 2.0 as this regenerative catalyst.
Okay.
What does that actually look like in practice?
So it's about creating like a ripple effect.
Okay.
Right. They envision Engedi 2.0 as like the spark that ignites this wider change.
Okay.
That's not just within the walls of the chapel, but throughout the community and even beyond.
So it's less about Engedi being like the sole driver and more about them empowering others to create that change themselves.
Yes, exactly. Think of it like planting a seed.
Okay.
It's not enough to just scatter seeds, right?
Right.
You need fertile ground for those seeds to actually take root and flourish.
Right.
And I think Engedi 2.0 is trying to cultivate that fertile ground by providing the resources, the skills, the inspiration, the network for individuals and the community to really thrive.
So it's about fostering this whole ecosystem of innovation and creativity and collective action. I mean, that's a pretty ambitious goal.
It is a really ambitious goal.
How will they know if they're succeeding?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Right.
And it's one that honestly has no easy answers.
Right.
Right? It's not as straightforward as like, measuring profits or attendance rates. It's about looking for those subtle shifts in the community. Are young people choosing to stay?
Okay. Yeah.
Are new businesses popping up? Is there a renewed sense of pride? A sense of possibility?
Those are harder to quantify.
They are.
But I think ultimately more meaningful measures of success.
Absolutely.
Right. It's about looking beyond those immediate outputs.
Yes.
To the long-term outcome.
100%. It's about those ripple effects.
Yeah.
That might not be fully apparent for years.
And that's where their commitment, I think, to this community empowerment, to the digital democracy tools, to those ongoing feedback loops, that becomes so crucial.
Yes, because it's about making sure that it's responsive.
Right, exactly.
That Engedi is responsive to the community.
That it remains responsive to the evolving needs of the community.
Yes.
That it serves.
100%. And it's about being willing to adapt.
Right.
To learn from mistakes and to kind of course correct along the way.
Yeah.
Because the path to regeneration, it's rarely linear.
It's not a straight line.
Right. It's going to be full of twists and turns.
Exactly. It's a journey of discovery, I think, both for the community and for the team behind Engedi 2.0.
Yeah.
And as with any good journey, it's not just about the destination.
Right.
It's about the experiences and the connections that you make along the way.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe Engedi 2.0's journey will inspire others to kind of embark on their own explorations of regeneration.
Right.
To uncover hidden potential in their own communities.
Right. And to weave their own unique tapestry.
Exactly. Love it.
And that's what I think makes this project so fascinating, so full of possibility. It's this reminder that even in a world that often feels defined by what's broken, there are still those out there who dare to imagine a brighter future and are actively working to build it.
Yeah. Love that.
Brick by digital brick.
Brick by digital brick. So, to our listener, we leave you with this thought.
Okay.
What hidden gems exist in your community?
Oh, good question.
What forgotten spaces are out there just holding this, like, amazing potential for reinvention? And perhaps, just like the Engedi Chapel, they're just waiting for the right story to breathe new life into their walls.
It's a beautiful thought.
And who knows, maybe you'll be the one to tell it.
Maybe you will be.